Welcome to Containerize Conversations, where we containerize our conversation to less than 15 minutes.
I'm your host, Josh Warhurst, and with me
Is Jesse Caffarilli.
Jesse. Today we're talking about leadership versus management. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's a very aggressive topic,
Oh, yeah.
and I want to see where you start us out with.
Yeah, so sneak peek for our listeners. We're doing a little book club that a new series coming up soon following the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So we're reading it, doing our recordings. And, there's one specific section in one of the chapters we just started reading, which was Habit 2, that I thought was hilarious. And I was like, you could do a whole episode just on this like one phrase or this one concept. And it is the leadership versus management. I think there's so many different articles that come out about this and buzzwords and whatnot, but it's always so hard to really understand like what is the difference between management and leadership. Should you be both? Like, what are the complexities? And this is actually one of if I was going to kind of look back at my career path and the problems I've hit in my life, some of it did revolve around this. Now, to give the definition to our listeners who might not have read the 7 Habits yet, or even know like what the second habit is, in the book, he talks about, there's a section where they're talking about cutting down trees in a forest. And management, is, so you have your workers, those are the hands on keyboard. They're the ones chopping the tree down. You have your managers, and the managers are the ones sharpening the axe, sharpening the saw, helping the workers be more efficient, improving processes so that they could cut the trees down faster. And leaders are the ones that climb to the top of the tree, in this dense middle of the nowhere forest, and look to see what direction they're heading in. And they're the ones to shout back down and go, hey, we're heading in the opposite direction. And in the book, he says, and most of the time they'll scream back, shut up, we're working down here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and this is actually, I really like this metaphor as a way of describing management versus leadership, right? Yeah. Management is trying to get the most out of your workers, and leadership is deciding, are they even moving in the right direction?
Yeah.
Right. I think that a lot of times people move on this line, like they want to be leaders and they get stuck into management.
Yeah.
Being like, you know what, I can't focus on what we need to do. I just need to get this one project over the finish line, realizing that like, is the project even important?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other leaders who don't I think it's good that leaders are a little bit abstracted away from the daily tasks, right? You don't want a micromanager leader, the one that says, oh, we need to go and make our thing deployable to 20 different sites, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
We don't want that exactly, but you do want somebody who says, we do need this for our organization, and I'm going to empower the different managers to get us there.
Yeah. 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 No, and one of the problems that I run into in my working career is the fact that there are managers who think they should also be leaders, but they may not necessarily be the best leaders, but they think they have to be. Because I think traditional management style says they have to be both managers and leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And no one else should be questioning them. No one else should be giving them direction. They're the ones that give the direction, right? And that's the thing is, for me, I tend to be a natural leader, right? Even when I don't want to be a leader, I tend to drift into leadership roles. But I don't want to be manager at all. I hate being manager. I'm not a people person, And I think that's the hardest part because, in my mind, I actually think like a manager can still be a leader, right? But I think that they should know what they're good at and be leaders in that perspective, I guess what you would call it, like silo or specialization, right? If you're not a technical person, you should not be a technical leader. And just because you're a manager of a technical team, that doesn't necessarily mean you should be a technical leader. And you should recognize as a manager that maybe you're not technical, and so you should defer to your technical leaders to help direct you and the rest of the team.
You said something that I think is really interesting that I haven't thought about before this conversation,
Yeah.
which is that a manager shouldn't necessarily be a leader, but an individual contributor could be a leader,
Yeah.
right? You could have somebody on the team who becomes a tech lead
Yeah.
effectively, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
A leader who says, you know, we need to be moving in this direction.
Yeah.
And the manager who translates that mission
Yeah.
out to the rest of the team and even to the
Yep.
people above them, saying, hey,
Yep.
we have somebody on our team who says that we actually need to be focusing on observability in our
Yeah.
platform,
Yep.
right? I haven't thought about that. Upper management's never thought about that. This person
Yep.
is really pushing us in a new direction. They don't need to make this statement, but
Yeah.
this person is pushing us in this direction of observability. And now I'm going to use all the resources I have as a manager, not just for my team, but also to translate this up to people above. Leadership doesn't have to come top down. It can come bottom up. And the whole point of a manager is to simply, and this can take a lot of forms, but to simply organize the people doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, manage process, sharpen tools, right? Find the right tools for the job, right? That is what a manager's role is supposed to be. And it's actually really funny. When I first came into this career, team lead and technical lead were very popular roles. I feel like I haven't seen them in the past like 15 years. I think they turned into like principal engineer and staff engineer, right? But that was the point of those roles. A technical lead was a person who is leading the team technically because the manager didn't have the technical chops to do so. And then vice versa, you would create a team lead if the manager was actually a really good tech lead, but maybe not the best people manager, right? So team lead would do that, which seems counterproductive. But I mean, I have ran into situations where, you know, I've met managers who are really good at the technical stuff, but maybe not the people stuff, right? And so that's where again, recognize your weakness as a manager and get a team lead and have the team lead manage relationships, right? Do one-on-ones with them, you know, make sure they have the right tools, make sure they have the right processes. That is what a team lead should do. And so, you know, I find it interesting, though. I don't think I don't think I've heard the word team lead or technical lead probably in the last like 10 years now.
Yeah, I think I've heard people say it, but it's certainly not in like a job post, like, oh, you're going to be technical lead or whatever. I think sometimes that position kind of just falls into place when you work at a place.
Yeah.
And it actually brings me to the idea of managers as leaders, right? I think if you have somebody solid on your team who is bringing leadership, then management can kind of eat that up and say, you know, we're going to follow this guy. And, you know, that's great, right? But if absent that person, I think managers are required to at least have some level of leadership, right?
Yeah.
Maybe their leadership is not, it can be subservient to an actual leader. But I think that if there's no other leadership on the team, then a lot of managers are expected to have some level of leadership. Whether or not they execute or even should be part of their job. But I do think individual contributors should think of themselves as potential leaders, even if they say, well, I don't command a team. I don't have a high role. You can still, especially in the DevOps field, you can make some small changes that truly change the course of the ship, right?
Yeah.
You're almost like the person controlling the rudder of the boat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're not actually deciding the destination, but you have a pretty big impact on what happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
recognize that responsibility.
In dysfunctional organizations, and there isn't a leader, you know, you said that the expectation is the manager's a leader, but that's the problem is there are dysfunctional organizations that have no leaders. You know, I think we might have I think we might have seen it, and that's the thing is those dysfunctional organizations. What ends up happening is they firmly set themselves into the region of 1 and 3. Right? We're getting into the book again, but you know it talks about the quadrants of work. But that's the problem when you don't have a leader. Then you are just constantly firefighting. And not only are you constantly firefighting, but you also don't see a reason not to, right? You might even look at people who aren't working on urgent things and go, what are you doing? You're wasting your time, right?
That's a good point. Right,
You
because
know,
you're not working towards anything. You're just saying, as long as people are moving, that's a good thing. And this whole, one of the things in the book is talking about, people when they're working, if they're not working in the right direction, then it's useless, right? It's a bad choice of actions, right? You need to start with a goal in mind, and then you actually need to move towards that goal. And if you're moving but not towards that goal, that's a bad thing, right? I think there are some people that feel like if you're just moving, it's fine. No, because you could be moving in the wrong direction. Right? People are getting tired as you cut down a forest that doesn't need to be cut down.
Well, and I think that's the other reason why I really like that analogy is because as a leader, there are going to be times when people yell at you for pointing out that you're heading in the wrong direction. And they might not even listen to you. They're screaming at you that they're working. Why aren't you? Why are you climbing this tree? We're supposed to be cutting them down. But you, as the leader, you need to continue doing that. And what you need to do is figure out effective ways to make them understand that they might be heading in the wrong direction. Right? Or don't be a leader. Get off the tree and go either cut it down or improve the process to cutting it. Right?
I mean, the fact is some people really like, to use the metaphor, cutting down trees. They know how to do it safely. They know how to do it well. They know how to do it quickly. They end their day and they say, I cut down 40 trees today. It was a really good day. Nobody got hurt. Right? Everything worked out. And that can be a totally justified, a good life. Right? But
same thing with managers, right? You could love to sharpen tools. You could love, improving processes. You could love helping your team be more effective at running really fast, right? And if you are, that's fantastic. Maybe you don't want to be a leader,
But I think a lot of in the DevOps space is realizing, what does an organization not have? And how do we fill that void? And that might mean that what the organization doesn't have is leadership. And that's the void you need to fill. Right. And that can be a hard void. I mean, I feel like this whole world is a world where you might have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but because it's the thing that makes the organization better. Right.
Well, and that's the thing. It's hard. I do think sometimes people think that, there can only be one leader. But that's the thing. You can have multiple leaders. That's perfectly fine. It's just you need to make sure you have like a good set of leaders, right? If you have a technical leader, you have a people managing leader, you just have to make sure you have the right set of leaders. If they're all technical, then they might end up combating each other. And then that also, then you have a lot of problems too.
Yeah, I do think when you get the principal engineers, like two principal engineers on a team, there's too much leadership. You can get into the issue where
you have 20 principal engineers, no juniors or seniors.
But they're all having different directions for the boat. Right.
Everyone's on top of the tree. No one's cutting it down.
I've often had problems with teams that have like the principal engineers butting their heads against each other. And I came to the conclusion previously that the problem there is that it's just too many hot-headed people with strong opinions in the same room. I think it actually comes down to leadership, where it's really a question of where should the organization move? And at some point you need to have somebody back off and say, okay, yes, we're going in this direction.
It gets back to the effective tools in the book, and one of them being a mission statement, right? If 3 people are battling it out, then everyone should be able to stop, look at the mission statement and say, which one is going to effectively achieve our goals based off of this mission statement. Right?
And the mission statement, even collectively as like something created by the group, everybody in the group says, we need to work on this thing. What are we actually standing for? That is an act of leadership. Right? Saying, what are we doing? And the fact that it's not a single person, it's the whole organization saying, we are collectively in this one moment being a leader.
That's a people leader. And I that's one thing. I haven't ran into a ton of people who are people leaders. The people leaders should be managers. That's what I would say, is if you're a people leader, then you would be an effective manager. But that's a problem. And I do think every manager should be a people leader, but I don't think they are. And that's hard too, you know?
Yep. Well, hey, I think solidly I have, from the beginning of this episode to the point that we are now, rethought how I conceptualize managers and leaders. And I'm going to bring this with me to work as an actionable statement, being like, where is our leadership coming from? Try to identify that.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Where is the leadership? Where is technical leadership coming from? Where is people leadership coming from?
Yeah. And what are we lacking, right? We might not be lacking managing, right? Managerial action. We might have a team that works very well and we're just not moving in the right direction, or we might be moving in the right direction and we might not have people that are sharpening the saws.
Yeah. Or the direction, but you're not moving in a good way.
Right. You can have a leader who's actually pushing everybody in a solid direction.
Yeah.
And just not having the managerial support.
But everybody, you're cutting down trees with toothbrushes.
but you're moving in the right direction. So every tree that gets down is a good tree to get cut down. So
that's a positive outlook. I like it.
I hope we don't cut down trees with toothbrushes.
Oh man. Well,
they're better tools.
Thank you everyone for joining our side rant. This is a sneak peek into what you'll see in the future. We'll be launching a book club series on the 7 Habits. So looking for that soon.
Yeah. That's been our Containerized Conversation. I'm Josh Warhurst.
And I'm Jesse Caffrielli. You have a good night.